Ladies and gentlemen, they told you that being nice would bring you love, that if you were agreeable, polite, soft-spoken, and always said yes, the world would open its arms to you. Being nice seems harmless at first. You grow up learning that smiling, staying agreeable, and avoiding conflict is the path to being liked and accepted. You're taught that kindness is a virtue, and you naturally associate being nice with being kind. But what if I told you that being nice isn't the same as being kind? What if your niceness isn't actually a reflection of your character, but a reflection of your fear? Many men become nice, not because they genuinely care for others, but because they're afraid. Afraid of rejection, afraid of not being liked, afraid of rocking the boat or being seen as too much. They silence their opinions, suppress their instincts, and constantly scan the room to see what others want from them. Then they become that. They confuse obedience with virtue. They confuse being liked with being respected. And so, they go through life bending to the expectations of others, hoping their compliance will buy them connection. But what they don't realize is that every time they say yes when they mean no, they're betraying themselves. Every time they swallow their truth to avoid conflict, they lose a piece of their identity. And over time, they no longer know who they are, just who others want them to be. This kind of niceness isn't about love. It's about survival. It's a strategy, a performance. You try to earn love by making yourself small, silent, safe. But that doesn't inspire love. It inspires convenience. People start to see you as someone they can use, someone who won't push back, someone who will always give even when it costs them everything. They don't admire your selflessness. They take it for granted. The nice guy hides his fire because he's scared of being seen as difficult or selfish. But in doing so, he becomes invisible. He wonders why people overlook him, why he's not respected at work, why his relationships feel one-sided. He doesn't see that his constant niceness has stripped him of edge, of gravity, of power. Because when you fear upsetting others, you hand your power to them. True kindness is rooted in strength. It's deliberate, it's generous, but it's also discerning. True kindness doesn't fear confrontation, it welcomes truth. But niceness? Niceness is fragile. It's desperate to be liked, so it avoids honesty. It avoids boundaries. It avoids the uncomfortable truth that not everyone will approve of you, and that's okay. The man who is kind is not always liked, but he is respected. He doesn't serve others to feel worthy, he does so because he chooses to. He gives from overflow, not from emptiness. He knows how to say no without guilt. He can stand alone, firm and unapologetic. That is power. That is clarity. That is what the nice man has lost. So if you've been living under the mask of niceness, it's time to ask yourself, who are you trying to please? Whose love are you trying to earn? Whose opinions are keeping you from being real? The truth is, when you let fear drive your behavior, you become forgettable. You blend into the background. You become agreeable to the point of insignificance. But the moment you stop letting fear control you, the moment you speak and act with truth, even if it's unpopular, you begin to command attention. Not through force, but through authenticity. Nice guys rarely change the world. They rarely lead. They rarely build lives they are deeply proud of, because they're too busy trying not to upset anyone. But you weren't born to be everyone's favorite. You were born to be free. And freedom requires courage. It's okay to be kind. It's okay to love deeply. But never let your kindness come from fear. Never use niceness as a disguise for your inability to say what needs to be said. You don't need to be rude, you need to be real. Because the world doesn't need more nice men. It needs men who are brave enough to speak the truth, strong enough to set boundaries, and wise enough to stop sacrificing their soul just to make others comfortable. Stop being the nice man. Start being the real man. That's when everything begins to change. The world doesn't reward people who constantly please others. It respects those who set boundaries and stand for something, even if it's uncomfortable. This is one of the hardest truths for a so-called nice man to accept. The condition to believe that the more agreeable we are, the more the world will appreciate us. That if we just keep showing up, giving more, staying quiet, going with the flow, eventually we'll be recognized, respected, and loved. But the opposite is true. When you live your life trying to please everyone, you end up pleasing no one, not even yourself. You become a chameleon, changing your colors to suit the environment, and in doing so you lose your identity. People begin to sense that you stand for nothing. You go along with anything, not because it aligns with your values, but because you fear upsetting the balance. And that lack of conviction, it's noticeable. People may smile at you. They may call you such a good guy. But they won't follow you. They won't turn to you in a crisis. They won't see you as powerful or dependable. Why? Because power doesn't lie in how agreeable you are. It lies in how firm your inner foundation is. Setting boundaries is not about being aggressive. It's not about being rude or cold. It's about recognizing your own worth, your own time, your own values, and protecting them. A man without boundaries is a man without a backbone. He's the one who says yes to every demand, who tolerates disrespect, who accepts situations that drain him because he doesn't believe he has the right to say no. But the moment you begin to assert yourself, to set limits, to make decisions based on your own clarity, rather than the need to be liked, people take notice. They may not like it at first, especially if they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. They may call you selfish. They may say you've changed. And that's okay. That reaction is normal. What matters is that you're no longer being manipulated by guilt, obligation, or fear of disapproval. You are reclaiming your life. You are reclaiming your voice. And the more you do this, the more the right people start to show up. People who respect you. People who value your honesty. People who understand that your no is just as powerful as your yes. Standing for something requires courage. It requires you to risk being misunderstood, disliked, or even rejected. But every great man who ever inspired change, whether in a family, a business, a community, or the world, stood for something. They weren't universally liked, but they were respected. Because respect is not given to those who follow every rule, bow to every demand, or say whatever others want to hear. Respect is given to those who are clear, grounded, and unwavering in their values. Think about the people you admire most. Are they pushovers? Or are they individuals who know who they are and aren't afraid to show it? Do they chase approval? Or do they walk in their truth, even when it's uncomfortable? The world responds to strength, not the strength of ego or dominance, but the strength of alignment. When you live in alignment with your core beliefs, when you stop trying to be everything for everyone, you develop a rare kind of presence, a presence that speaks before you open your mouth, a presence that says, "This is who I am. Take it or leave it." That's what gets rewarded. Not the performance, not the politeness, not the people-pleasing, but the integrity, the real you. You weren't born to be the background character in someone else's story. You weren't born to bend endlessly until you break. You were born to stand for something. Maybe it's your time. Maybe it's your peace. Maybe it's your passion, your principles, your dreams. Whatever it is, protect it. Speak for it. Live by it. Because the world doesn't need another man who follows. It needs men who lead themselves first. Men who are kind, yes, but also clear. Men who can love deeply, but won't tolerate disrespect. Men who can give, but don't abandon themselves in the process. Stop trying to please everyone. Start standing for something. That's when the world begins to take you seriously, not as someone convenient, but as someone compelling. Not as someone nice, but as someone unforgettable. The nice guy syndrome is a quiet trap. It doesn't look dangerous. In fact, it looks polite, friendly, and socially acceptable. But beneath the surface, it's built on fear, self-abandonment, and a deep hunger for validation. It teaches you to live for others, to shape yourself into whatever will make people like you. And while you may gain temporary approval, you lose something much more important, your sense of self. The nice guy is not genuinely kind. He's strategic. His kindness is conditional, though even he may not realize it. He's nice so that people won't get upset. He's agreeable so that no one leaves him. He goes along with what others say, not because he truly agrees, but because he doesn't want to feel the sting of conflict. He thinks that if he just plays the role well enough, if he's helpful, calm, patient, always smiling, then people will reward him with love, loyalty, and recognition. But that reward rarely comes. Why? Because people can feel when someone is being inauthentic. They may not be able to name it, but they feel it in their gut. Being trapped in the nice guy role means you spend your life chasing permission. You second-guess your needs. You shrink your opinions. You hesitate to take up space to challenge ideas, to say, this is what I believe and I stand by it. You become overly apologetic for who you are, and you hope your sacrifices will buy you peace. But the peace never lasts, because it's not real. It's built on suppression. Nice guys think they are doing the right thing. They think they are being emotionally intelligent by avoiding friction. But in reality, they are emotionally disconnected from their truth. They deny their anger, ignore their desires, and repress their masculine edge. They believe that being safe and passive will keep them loved. Instead, it makes them invisible. Frustration builds. The nice guy begins to feel resentment. He gives and gives, but doesn't receive. He's always there for others, but no one seems to be there for him. His kindness is met with expectation, not appreciation. And inside, he starts to feel bitter, but he doesn't know how to express it. He's trapped between needing approval and needing freedom. And the longer he waits to break out of this pattern, the more lost he feels. Breaking free from the nice guy syndrome isn't about becoming a jerk. It's not about flipping to the other extreme and being cold or indifferent. It's about reclaiming your authenticity. It's about doing and saying things because they align with your values, not because you're trying to win someone's favor. It's about being rooted in who you are rather than being shaped by who others want you to be. When you let go of the need to be liked, you make room for respect. When you stop adjusting yourself to avoid discomfort, you begin to experience genuine connection. because now you're showing up as your real self. And that's what people crave. Not perfect politeness, but real presence. Not constant agreement, but honest engagement. The man who breaks free from the nice guy pattern begins to live with purpose. He starts to trust his instincts. He allows himself to feel anger, not to act destructively, but to recognize where his boundaries have been crossed. He allows himself to say no without guilt, to disagree without fear, and to love without losing himself. And here's the irony. The less you try to please everyone, the more people are drawn to you. There is something magnetic about a man who is true to himself. People respect a man who doesn't chase, who doesn't beg, who doesn't need external validation to feel worthy. That man becomes a leader, not just in career or society, but in his own life. The path to becoming that man begins with one decision: to stop playing small, to stop pretending, to stop giving pieces of yourself away for free. You don't need to be liked by everyone. You need to be respected by yourself. And when you are, the right people, those who see your value without needing to be catered to, will naturally gravitate toward you. You won't need to perform anymore. You'll just need to be. That's the freedom you were meant for. And it starts the moment you decide to stop being the nice guy and start being real. You teach others how to treat you, not with your words, but with your behavior. Every time you tolerate disrespect, every time you stay silent when your boundaries are crossed, every time you show up for people who never show up for you, you're sending a message. This is what I accept. And people listen, not to what you say, but to what you allow. If you always say yes, if you make yourself endlessly available, if you keep giving your time, energy, and attention without ever drawing the line, then don't be surprised when people begin to expect it. They will stop seeing your generosity as a gift and start treating it as a given. And the more you give without limits, the more they will take. Because that's how human nature works. People test limits, and if you never set one, they'll assume you don't have any. This isn't about blaming others. It's about understanding how much power you actually hold. You're not a victim of other people's behavior. You're a participant in how they learn to treat you. And if you show up like a doormat, they'll walk on you. If you constantly try to keep the peace at the cost of your truth, they'll never learn to respect your truth. If you never demand respect, they'll assume you don't need it. You're training the world, moment by moment, how to interact with you. It starts small. You let a comment slide because you don't want to seem too sensitive. You agree to something you don't want to do because you're scared of disappointing someone. You downplay your needs, saying it's fine even when it's not. Over time, these small compromises pile up and create a silent contract. I'll keep pretending everything is okay as long as you don't leave me. But at what cost? That your silence doesn't protect your relationships, it poisons them. Because the longer you pretend to be okay with things that hurt or drain you, the more resentment grows. And resentment is the death of authenticity. It creates distance, not connection. It turns you into someone who smiles on the outside. People respect boundaries. Maybe not immediately, maybe not cheerfully. But deep down, they admire someone who knows their worth and doesn't compromise it. When you say, this is not acceptable, you are not being rude, you are being honest. When you say, I need space, You are not being cold. You are being self-awareness. When you stop chasing people who disrespect your energy, you are not being arrogant. You are being aligned with your values. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to you. Not your time, not your kindness, not your emotional labor. These are privileges, not entitlements. And when you stop giving people discounts on your presence, you'll notice something powerful. Those who truly value you will rise to meet your standards. The ones who don't, they'll fade away. And that's not a loss. That's clarity. You were not put here to be liked by everyone. You were not born to be agreeable at your own expense. You were not created to be the emotional sponge for people who refuse to take responsibility for their own mess. Your energy is sacred. Your time is limited. Your heart is valuable. And it is your responsibility, not theirs, to protect it. It may feel uncomfortable at first, saying no when you've always said yes, walking away when you're used to staying, speaking up when silence feels safer. But discomfort is the price of transformation. Growth requires attention. And every time you hold your boundary, you send a new message not just to others, but to yourself. I am worthy of respect. This shift will change your relationships. It will weed out those who only valued your compliance. It will draw in those who recognize your depth. It will give you space to breathe, to be, to exist fully, without constantly editing yourself for the sake of others. You are the standard. You are the teacher. You are the one who defines how people treat you. And the moment you decide to stop negotiating your worth, the world will follow your lead. Not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. Teach them. Not with words, but by never accepting less than you deserve. Again, you were not born to be tolerated, you were born to be respected. Yet somewhere along the way, many men forget this truth. They start believing that staying quiet, staying agreeable, and staying available will earn them love, but what they end up earning is being overlooked, underestimated, and unappreciated. Why? Because when you water yourself down for the comfort of others, they stop seeing your value. Respect doesn't come from being nice. It doesn't come from constantly nodding, giving in, or avoiding difficult conversations. Respect comes from being grounded in who you are, your truth, your boundaries, your standards. People don't remember the man who tries to please everyone. They remember the man who walks with quiet certainty, who doesn't beg for approval, who doesn't fear silence or solitude, because he knows his presence has weight. If you want to be respected, stop trying to be liked. When your mission in life is to win everyone's approval, you sacrifice your dignity. You become malleable, overly adaptable. You say what people want to hear instead of what needs to be said. You do things to avoid disapproval rather than to live in alignment with your values. You avoid truth to maintain peace. But that peace is false. It's a peace built on suppression. True respect arises when others see that you're not afraid to stand alone, that you don't collapse under pressure, that you will not compromise your integrity just to be accepted. There's a presence that comes with that kind of self-respect, a presence that speaks, even in silence. When you walk into a room without needing anything from anyone, people feel it. When you speak with calm authority, Without chasing approval or trying to dominate, people lean in. You become the kind of man others consult, not because you try to impress them, but because you trust yourself. The man who earns true respect isn't the loudest, the strongest, or the most liked. He is the one who knows who he is and lives from that place consistently. He may not always be agreeable, but he is always honest. He may not always be soft, but he is always fair. He may not always say yes, but when he does, it's real, not forced. If you've been stuck in the nice man trap, trying to keep the peace, avoiding confrontation, putting everyone else's needs before your own, understand this: respect and kindness are not mutually exclusive, but respect must come first. Without it, your kindness will be misread as weakness. Your generosity will be mistaken for obligation. Your empathy will be treated as a resource others feel entitled to, not as a gift you've chosen to offer. The moment you stop handing out your time, your energy, your love to anyone who demands it, and start being selective, something shifts. You become less accessible, but more valuable. You don't shrink to fit spaces that were never meant for you. You don't chase validation. You hold your ground and let others rise to meet you. This kind of respect begins with how you treat yourself. Do you honor your own time? Do you follow through on your word to yourself, not just to others? Do you protect your energy, your focus, your values? Or are you constantly compromising them to avoid uncomfortable emotions or potential conflict? Every time you act in alignment with your truth, even when it's hard, you reinforce your self-respect, and that radiates outward. People feel it. They respond to it. Some will resist it, especially if they benefited from your lack of boundaries. But the ones who matter, the ones who are aligned with your purpose and your worth, will respect it. They'll respect you. So let go of the need to be the good guy in everyone's story. Be the honest one. Be the real one. Be the man who doesn't flinch in the face of judgment or rejection. Because the moment you stop trying to be liked by everyone, you make space for something greater, to be respected by the right ones, and more importantly, by yourself. There comes a point when you have to stop explaining yourself. Stop justifying your choices. Stop apologizing for your standards. Stop shrinking your truth so others can feel tall next to you. The man who keeps over-explaining his value rarely knows it. And the more you explain, the more you train people to question you. Because true confidence doesn't justify, it simply exists. It doesn't beg. It doesn't persuade. It simply moves forward, grounded and silent. A man who constantly explains himself is often trying to fill a void, seeking approval, chasing permission, needing reassurance. But you don't need to explain who you are to those who already see you. And you'll never explain yourself enough to satisfy those who don't. So why exhaust yourself in the process? Why keep trying to convince people who've already decided what they think of you? That's not strength. That's self-abandonment. There's a different way to move. One that is not reactive, but calm. Not defensive, but rooted. It's the way of the man who knows himself, who doesn't argue to be understood because he understands himself. He doesn't prove his intentions because they're already clear within him. He doesn't beg for love or recognition. He gives it to himself first. And from that place of fullness, he chooses who he lets in. When you stop explaining, a quiet power begins to emerge. People may not like it. Some will call you arrogant. Some will say you've changed. But that discomfort is not your burden. It is their discomfort with your evolution. And you are not here to babysit their expectations. You are here to grow. You are here to live in truth, not to decorate the walls of someone else's comfort zone. Silence becomes a language of its own. Not the silence of avoidance or fear, but the silence of strength. The kind that holds eye contact without flinching. The kind that listens without needing to interrupt. The kind that walks away without explanation when respect is no longer present. That silence, it speaks louder than anything you could say, because it shows you are no longer available for disrespect, manipulation, or smallness. You've outgrown it, and you don't need to explain why. When you reach this level of self-respect, everything changes. Your energy shifts. You stop chasing conversations that drain you. You stop defending your decisions to people who don't live your life. You stop pouring yourself out just to be understood. Instead, you move differently. You speak when necessary, you act with intention, and when you walk away, it's not to punish, it's to protect your peace. This doesn't mean you become cold. It means you become clear. Clear about what matters to you. Clear about who earns your time. Clear about what you're building. Clarity is intimidating to people who benefit from your confusion. The moment you stop over-explaining, you stop giving away your power. You stop inviting others to shape your reality. You stop asking for permission to be who you already are. And here's the truth. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing yourself. You don't owe an explanation for setting boundaries, for evolving, for healing, for leaving situations that once fit but now suffocate. You don't owe anyone a map of your growth. Your progress is valid, even if they don't understand it, even if they never do. Let your silence say what words cannot. Let your decisions speak your truth. Let your walk be your message. Because in a world full of noise, a man who moves with quiet certainty becomes unforgettable. The next time you're tempted to explain, pause. Ask yourself, am I sharing from confidence or from fear? Am I standing in truth or begging to be seen? If it's fear, hold it. If it's truth, live it. You don't have to announce it. Just become it. Let them see you through your energy, your presence, your actions. And those who are meant to walk with you, they'll understand. No words needed. Stop being the nice man and everything begins to change. Not because you become harsh, but because you become real. This speech is not a call to abandon kindness, but to anchor it in truth. It's a wake-up call to stop living in fear of rejection, to stop trading authenticity for approval, and to stop handing your power away for the sake of being liked. When you let go of the need to please, you reclaim the ability to lead. You begin to speak less, but mean more. You stop explaining yourself and start embodying yourself. You walk differently, not louder, but firmer, not to prove, but to declare through presence alone, I know who I am. People may resist this version of you. Some will leave. Let them. What remains will be real. Relationships built on mutual respect, not quiet desperation. You don't need to be the nice man anymore. You need to be the true man, the respected man, the man who moves from purpose, not permission, That's who you were always meant to be. And the moment you stop being the nice man, you'll discover what happens next. You finally become free. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a strange kind of power in a man who says nothing, not because he has nothing to say, but because he understands that the most valuable things in life are not announced, they are revealed. Most people make noise when they begin. They want applause before they've earned the stage. But you walk a different road. You build in silence. You rise before the sun, over the noise, endure when no one is watching, and expect nothing in return. Not validation, much sympathy, not approval, because you know this. Success built in silence becomes undeniable. It doesn't need a spokesman. It doesn't beg for attention. It commands it. You see, the world celebrates the outcome, but forgets the isolation that gave birth to it. They cheer when the man drives the car, lives in the house. He takes the stage. But where were they when he was bleeding in silence, and we had to convince himself to keep going? While the world laughed or ignored, the crowd does not care about the process, all in the proof. And the man who builds quietly does not give them previous. He gives them impact. There is magic in not being understood, mystery in not being predictable. You confuse them with your absence. Then you humble them with your presence. So let them gossip. Let them wonder. Let them talk about what they think you're doing, while you build, while you sharpen, while you evolve into something they cannot define. You see, those who speak too soon spend their lives defending promises they never kept. But the one who keeps silent emerges with results so loud he need say nothing. Build quietly and elevate privately. Then, when it is time, let your success interrupt their conversations. And when they ask, "Where did you come from?" you won't need to reply. The empire you built will speak for you. Silence is not absence, it is intention. This truth is often misunderstood in a world addicted to noise. People equate silence with weakness, with indecision, with a lack of ambition. But that's a shallow interpretation. Silence, when chosen with purpose, is not empty. It is full. Full of clarity, full of discipline, full of power. The man who chooses to build in silence is not hiding from the world. He is not lost, nor confused, nor idle. He is focused. He is present. He is doing what most cannot, working without applause, progressing without validation, and enduring without recognition. This kind of silence is a space where thoughts settle and intentions sharpen. While others are distracted by broadcasting their every move, the silent man refines his direction. He doesn't seek to be seen, he seeks to become. His energy is conserved, not scattered. His mind isn't busy crafting narratives to impress others. It's consumed with constructing the next step, the next version of himself, the next layer of his foundation. He is not living for performance. He is living for transformation. When you are silent in your process, you eliminate the weight of external opinions. You no longer carry the burden of being understood, approved, or admired. Instead, you are free to fail quietly, correct quickly, and rise again without the pressure of the audience. This is not weakness. This is strength, at its purest. The kind that is not distracted by applause or crushed by criticism. The man who builds in silence understands that growth is not a public spectacle. It is a private battle, a daily discipline of showing up, even when there's no applause, no spotlight, no cheering crowd. The muscles of greatness are forged in solitude. The habits of success are formed in the quiet hours when no one is watching. And the man who builds this way knows something vital. The silence he's choosing today is the reason his success will be heard tomorrow. People often confuse silence with inaction, but that's a mistake made by those who cannot sit still in their own minds. To be silent is to listen deeply to yourself, to reality, to what truly matters. It is the refusal to engage in the noise of competition, comparison, or complaint. It's the ability to stay centered when others are distracted. It's the power of restraint, the strength of waiting, the clarity of knowing exactly where you're going, even when you haven't told anyone else. This is not the silence of defeat. It is the silence of the sculptor, chiseling away slowly at something no one else can see yet. It is the silence of the seed buried in the ground, gathering strength to break through the surface. It is the silence of strategy, of mastery, of self-possession. And when the time comes to step into the light, that silence becomes your thunder. That silence becomes the force behind your voice, the weight behind your presence, the depth behind your success. You don't need to speak loudly when your life speaks for you. You don't need to explain your absence when your return is undeniable. And you don't need to argue with those who doubt you, because once your results arrive, your silence will be understood. It wasn't apathy. It wasn't fear. It was preparation. It was focus. It was intention. If you're walking a quiet path, keep walking. If no one sees your efforts yet, let that be your advantage. If the world is overlooking you, let that be your shield. Because in this silence you are building something that will be impossible to ignore. And when that day comes, your success won't just be seen, it will be heard. Loudly, unmistakably, powerfully. And all you'll have to do is smile. Loud beginnings invite small endings. It's a pattern seen far too often in the lives of those who are more invested in appearance than substance. They start with a roar, announcements, declarations, promises to the world, social media posts, grand claims, attention-seeking behavior, all wrapped in the illusion of progress. And yet, beneath the surface, there is no root, no foundation, no discipline, just noise. And noise, no matter how impressive it sounds in the beginning, fades when there is no structure beneath it. The man who begins loudly is like a house built on sand. He wants to be seen before he's stable, admired before he's ready, celebrated before he's earned anything. His focus is split between building and broadcasting, and so neither is done well. He's constantly looking for validation instead of mastery. He is addicted to perception, not progress. That's why his journey rarely lasts. The applause becomes a distraction. The pressure becomes unbearable. And the identity he built around expectations begins to collapse. True greatness doesn't begin with noise. It begins with stillness, with patience, with inner resolve. The man who builds quietly understands this. He knows that beginnings are sacred, and that the energy you use at the start determines whether you will have the endurance to finish. He doesn't rush to be noticed. He doesn't need to, because he knows that every day spent in solitude, every quiet hour of practice, every silent effort is adding to something real, something no one can take away from him. There is a dangerous illusion in beginning loudly. It creates pressure to maintain an image that hasn't yet been earned. When you've told everyone your plans before you've even begun the work, you become enslaved to their expectations. You start living for their reactions instead of your own growth. You start to fear failure, not because you care about falling, but because you're afraid of how you look. That fear corrupts your process. It turns a meaningful journey into a performance. And in that performance, you lose yourself. On the other hand, the man who begins in silence does not carry that weight. He starts without the eyes of the world watching. He fails privately, corrects humbly, and grows deeply. His energy goes entirely into the work, not into the image. He doesn't care who knows, he cares who becomes. And because he begins with quiet conviction, his finish is loud with results. His ending is thunderous, not because he asked for attention, but because what he built demands it. There's also humility in a quiet beginning. It shows that you respect the process, that you understand greatness takes time, that you don't believe you deserve praise for potential. Instead, you want your actions to speak louder than your words. This humility keeps you grounded, it keeps you learning, it keeps you from falling in love with the idea of yourself, and instead pushes you to become the version you're truly capable of being. The truth is, those who start quietly often outlast and outshine those who start loudly to do that, and for who this poet answers to those volume, I'm willing to lead a description. Those who start quietly often outlast and attach people to bear up. They simply stay over long enough to be seen. Those who are still, and it echoes far louder than the noise of early declarations. Let others start with a bang, if they must. Let them chase the spotlight and seek the stage before they're ready. But you build quietly. Begin with stillness. Start with soul. The world doesn't need to hear your voice yet. It will hear your results soon enough. And when it does, they'll speak volumes. Power grows in privacy. That which is nurtured in secret often blooms the strongest. In a world that constantly urges you to be visible, to share every move, to document every step, choosing privacy is an act of rebellion. But more than rebellion, it is wisdom. Because the most powerful transformations happen away from the noise. Not because they are small or uncertain, but because they require space. Mental, emotional, and spiritual space to become something unshakable. Privacy is not hiding, it is protecting. It is preserving the sacredness of your growth. When a man retreats into himself, when he closes the door to unnecessary opinions, distractions, and validations, he begins to cultivate something rare, clarity. In that clarity, he sees himself without distortion. He learns what truly matters. He separates what is real from what is loud. And that discernment, that grounded sense of purpose, becomes the foundation of a quiet kind of power. You see, power that must constantly declare itself is insecure. Power that needs applause to survive is weak. But power that grows in silence has depth. It doesn't need to announce its arrival, because when it arrives, it changes the atmosphere. The man who has built himself privately enters a room differently. He doesn't chase attention, but attention is drawn to him. He doesn't demand respect, but people feel compelled to offer it. Why? Because he radiates something that cannot be faked. Authenticity, strength, and self-possession. When you grow privately, you are free to make mistakes without shame. You can fail and fall and adjust without the burden of watchers. You learn not for show, but for survival, not for performance, but for mastery. And in doing so, your skills sharpen, your mind strengthens, your focus deepens. There is no pressure to please anyone, only a burning desire to evolve. That kind of environment, free from constant comparison, is the ideal ground for power to take root. Privacy also protects you from premature judgment. People are quick to label what they don't understand. They will box you in, define you by your past, limit you to what they've already seen. But when you disappear for a while into your work, your self-discipline, your mission, you rob them of that power. You re-emerge transformed, beyond what they imagined, beyond what they were prepared for. And that transformation hits harder because it wasn't broadcast. It was built in silence. In privacy, you also develop independence. You stop needing confirmation. You stop waiting for permission. You stop measuring your worth by others' reactions. And in that solitude, something beautiful happens. You begin to trust yourself. You hear your own voice more clearly than the noise around you. You act not to impress, but to express your highest self. And when you finally present your work, your presence, your achievement to the world, it is not a request for approval, it is a statement of being. This kind of power cannot be stolen because it wasn't given. It was earned. It cannot be shaken because it wasn't propped up by public opinion. It is internal, sovereign, and solid. That is what privacy gives you. A sanctuary in which to build something real. A shield from the chaos and a forge for greatness. So don't be afraid to vanish. Don't fear being misunderstood or overlooked. Don't crave the spotlight before you're ready. Use privacy as your advantage. Protect your process. Guard your energy. Grow in the shadows. Because one day, when your work is complete and your soul is steady, you will step into the world not as someone who needs to prove anything, but as someone who has already become everything they said you couldn't. Noise distracts, silence sharpens. This is one of the most overlooked truths in our time. We live in an age where everyone is encouraged to speak, post, share, perform constantly. The world has mistaken movement for progress and volume for value. But the man who seeks true growth, true mastery, understands that silence is not a void. It is a weapon. It is a discipline. It is the sharpening stone that hones the blade of purpose. When you strip away the noise, people's opinions, external expectations, the need to be seen, you are left with something terrifying and liberating, yourself. And that's where clarity begins. Because in silence, you no longer perform. You listen. You observe. You reflect. The distractions fall away, and suddenly what matters most begins to rise. You start to see where your energy is being wasted. Who is feeding your weakness? What habits are eroding your discipline? And what actions are truly aligned with your purpose? Noise scatters attention. It breaks focus. It inflates egos and feeds insecurities. The more you engage with it, the more your mind drifts away from the task at hand. You begin comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. You begin needing applause before you've built anything worth clapping for. But when you choose silence, you cut through all of that. You reclaim your mental space. Step away from the stage and return to the workshop, where real change happens, not for show, but for substance. Silence forces presence. It doesn't allow you to drift into fantasy. It pulls you back to reality. The sweat, the repetition, the slow grind. In that stillness, you're not pretending to be anything. You're simply doing the work. And that is what sharpens you. Repetition in solitude. Reflection without interruption. Learning without needing an audience. Progress without posting. Think of the archer. He draws his bow in silence. He breathes slowly, carefully. He narrows his vision, tunes out the crowd, and waits for perfect alignment. Only when everything is clear does he release. The same principle applies to the man who builds in silence. He does not release his ideas, his energy, or his voice until it is precise, powerful, and purposeful. He is not in a hurry to be seen. He is in pursuit of becoming undeniable. Most people burn out not because they don't have potential, but because they are too distracted to focus it. They are surrounded by too much noise, trying to do too many things, constantly interrupted by the need to be visible. But the man who embraces silence builds with intensity. He finishes what others abandon. He improves what others neglect. He grows while others entertain. That's why, when he finally emerges, The difference is undeniable. He didn't just hustle, he sharpened. Silence is also where you train your emotional strength. When you're not distracted by the outside world, you begin to face the storms inside you, the fears, the doubts, the anger, the need for validation, the habits that keep pulling you down. In noise, these weaknesses are often buried, but in silence they rise, and when you confront them, not once, but every day, you grow a deeper kind of strength, the kind that doesn't depend on mood, applause, or motivation, the kind that moves forward because it must. If the world is loud, let it be. If others are rushing to be seen, let them run. But you choose stillness, choose depth, choose focus. Go where it's quiet. Work while they talk, think while they shout, build while they distract themselves. Because in the end, the sharpest minds, the strongest souls, and the most powerful builders are not formed in the noise of the crowd, but in the silence of solitude. Success earned in silence has a weight, a gravity, a power that echoes louder than any announcement ever could. When a man toils in obscurity, when he struggles without sympathy, when he refines his craft without congratulations, he's not just building an outcome, he's building character. He's becoming something indestructible. Because silent success is not about proving anything to the world, it's about proving everything to yourself. There is a depth to success that comes from private perseverance. It's not just about reaching a goal. It's about knowing what it took to get there, knowing the nights you spent wrestling with your doubt, the mornings you rose early while others slept, the days you fought through exhaustion, distraction, and fear, and chose to keep going. No one saw it. No one clapped, but you showed up. You kept building, kept pushing, kept evolving. And now when success finally arrives, it's not hollow. It's earned. It's yours. When a man builds in silence, the success that follows carries more than just results. It carries respect. Not the kind that comes from admiration or envy, but the kind that comes from understanding. People may not know every step you took, but they feel the strength in your presence. They feel the weight of your preparation, your patience, your persistence. And even those who once doubted you are silenced not because you shouted over them, but because your results speak for themselves. Loud success, born from loud beginnings, often fades quickly. It was built for the crowd, not for the soul. But silent success is sustainable. It is rooted. It is balanced. You didn't race toward it blindly. You built toward it methodically. You didn't rely on trends, you relied on truth. You didn't compromise your focus for attention, you protected your vision, like something sacred. And because of that, what you've created can withstand storms. It's not a performance, it's a legacy. There's also a unique joy in achieving something that no one thought you could, not because you wanted to prove them wrong, but because you wanted to prove yourself right. The joy comes from looking at the life you've created and knowing it was born from silence, from solitude, from resilience. You didn't need to convince anyone along the way. You just needed to become someone they couldn't ignore. That kind of success is freedom. You no longer need applause to validate your worth. You don't need to explain your journey or justify your process. You simply exist as evidence. Evidence of what discipline, focus, and time can create. Evidence that silence is not emptiness, it's the soil where greatness grows. You become an example, not through words, but through presence. And that presence speaks volumes. Silent success also humbles you, because you remember the process. You remember the struggle. You don't take the outcome for granted because you know what it cost. It keeps you grounded, grateful, and focused, not just on what you've achieved, but on what you can still become. It teaches you that success is not a destination to boast about, but a state of being to nurture and protect. And perhaps most powerfully, silent success inspires without needing to be loud. Others look at your life and wonder how you did it. They noticed you didn't talk much, didn't boast, didn't demand recognition, and yet here you are, strong, centered, accomplished. It shows them that there is another way, a quieter way, a deeper way, one where success is not a chase for claps, but a journey of becoming, a transformation from within that needs no introduction. When your success finally arrives, let it speak. Let it echo the discipline, the solitude, the quiet hours you endured. Let it carry the power of everything you chose to do in silence, because that kind of success doesn't just change your life, it changes how people see what's possible. When a man builds in silence, something extraordinary happens. He doesn't just arrive at success, he arrives as someone transformed. And when he finally steps into the light, the world cannot help but take notice. Not because he asked for attention, but because the strength of what he's become makes attention inevitable. His presence now carries weight. His results carry proof. And his voice, once quiet, now echoes with the power of lived truth. It's the irony. The man who never shouted now speaks volumes without needing to say a word. This is the reward of walking the quiet path. It's not just the achievement. It's the power that comes with having earned it alone. The man who emerges from silence doesn't just carry success, he carries depth. He is no longer reactive to the world, he has mastered his response to it. He's not swayed by opinions, trends, or approval. He has faced the solitude that most avoid. And instead of breaking, he built. What he built was not just a career, or a physique, or a dream. It was a new version of himself, forged through discomfort, shaped through repetition, and anchored by discipline. This is why when he finally enjoys his success, it feels loud, even if he doesn't speak, because everything he's done whispers behind him. The late nights, the early mornings, the sacrifices, the doubts he had to silence, the pain he endured quietly. These experiences leave an energy behind him that others feel. It's the kind of success that doesn't need to be explained. It is felt deeply, authentically. And when people finally witness what he has become, they don't just applaud, they pause. In a world where most chase quick wins and empty validation, the silent man becomes rare. He becomes magnetic, not because he sought to be admired, but because he became undeniable. There is no louder triumph than quiet work that produces unshakable results. The world listens when a man who never begged for attention starts drawing it simply by being who he is. He doesn't flaunt his success, he embodies it. And that embodiment speaks louder than any performance. His lifestyle becomes his statement. His choices become his philosophy. His discipline becomes his legacy. And those who once ignored him, doubted him, or dismissed him, now look in awe, not just because of what he has, but because of how he got it. Slowly, quietly, relentlessly. The beauty of this kind of success is that it's deeply rooted. Because it was not built for the camera, it does not crumble under pressure. Because it was not inflated by ego, it does not collapse in adversity. Because it was not born from comparison, it does not rely on being better than anyone. It relies only on being better than yesterday. That is why it lasts. That is why it echoes. When you build in silence, you develop patience. And when you achieve in silence, you carry presence. The man who arrives quietly doesn't just win, he changes the atmosphere. People feel that something is different. Something has been forged through solitude. He is not here to compete, to convince, or to impress. He is here because he endured. And in that endurance he found power no crowd could give him. Let the world rush. Let them speak. Let them seek applause. You, stay quiet. Stay focused. Keep building. Because one day, when your time comes, the world will witness not just your success, but your becoming. And when that moment arrives, you won't need to speak loudly. Your silence will have already said everything worth hearing. When a man builds in silence, he is not escaping the world, he is mastering himself within it. He steps away from the noise, not because he is weak, but because he understands that true strength is forged in solitude. Every quiet decision, every uncelebrated effort, every moment of unseen discipline stacks in his favor. And when he finally emerges, he doesn't seek recognition. He becomes the kind of man who cannot be ignored. This speech is not just about staying silent. It's about rising above the distractions, training the mind, refining the soul, and building a foundation that doesn't crack when tested. It's about understanding that real power doesn't announce itself, it arrives. And when it does, the world doesn't just hear it, it feels it. Build quietly, focus relentlessly, grow inwardly, and when the time is right, when you've earned your moment, let your success speak the loudest sentence silence ever wrote. I became everything without ever needing to be seen.